Welcome to this Summercast production. I'm Emil, also known as Summer, and today we will be talking about the blue-red-green birthing pod deck, also known as Rock Pod. And who better to talk with me about this than the man behind Superchibi, also known as Michael Hetrick, or to many of you, better known by his other moto name, Shipitholla. How's it going, Michael?
Good. How about you?
Yeah, pretty fine. Pretty psyched to do this. So yeah. And you've piloted this deck for two pretty big tournaments recently.
Maybe even more actually. I played in the World Magic Cup qualifier and the Invitational with it.
Okay.
And the MOCS. So.
Yeah, and the MOCS is where we've seen you battling it out, where you finished fourth, and in the Invitational you finished second. Alright, so what was the reasoning behind choosing this deck to play with?
Well, back a couple weeks ago, before I was playing it, I was being convinced by Matt Nass to play the deck, and at the time I was playing red-green, and red-green is very similar to this deck. So at that time I was just kind of pushing him off, just let me play red-green. But he proved to me that this deck is a much more powerful version of that.
Yeah.
So that's how I was convinced.
Okay. So how expensive is the blue splash on the mana base, do you think, compared to red-green?
Compared to the red-green, well, you have your 4 duels and 2 islands, and you're only playing. You're playing 4 blue cards total.
Yeah.
The Aether Adept is a big problem for the mana. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But that's a card that could be cut from the deck.
Okay.
So really, it's not that big of a sacrifice.
Okay. So we'll talk about the individual card choices now, and we'll get back to Aether Adept. Yeah. So the first cards I wanted to talk about is we have these 4 Llanowells and 4 Birds of Paradise and 1 Pilgrim. Now, most birthing pods tend to run 6 to 9, but since you're not even playing white, I was a bit surprised to see this card. How important are these mana dorks in your deck?
They're really important to the game plan, because like the deck obviously is a birthing pod deck. Playing birthing pod as soon as possible is the best thing you can do. So having maximum number of 1-drops is ideal.
Yeah. So I think if a casual player is looking at this deck, he's seeing 24 lands and 9 mana dogs. Do you flood out, or do you have a good mana sink to?
You don't flood out very often.
Okay.
Because you just have so many things you can do with your turns.
Yeah.
It does happen occasionally, but that happens with every deck occasionally. So.
Okay, fair enough. So, how well does the deck use the 1/1 body or 0/1 body? Is it just for acceleration, or?
Pretty much just for acceleration.
Yeah.
You have Silverheart that you can pair with the bird sometimes.
Yeah.
But usually you're just tapping for mana.
Okay. Fair enough. So, and the Pilgrim was an addition compared to your Star City Games open deck.
I was playing 1 Bonfire.
Yeah, exactly. And
the card isn't really key to the deck's what the deck's trying to do.
No.
So I just cut it and I added a Pilgrim.
Yeah, because the turn 1 guy is so important.
Yeah.
Another issue I wanted to talk, or not an issue perhaps, is you have 9 forests and 4 Copperline Gorge. Do you sometimes have to cast your mana dork turn 2 instead, or is it pretty consistent with casting it? I noticed you cut a forest compared to your Star City Games.
Yeah, I was down a forest so that I could have another mountain.
Yeah.
13 is pretty much the minimum for a deck that wants to play a 1-drop on turn 1, and 14 would be ideal. But 13 makes it work most of the time.
Yeah. Did you miss your forest, or was the second mountain really key?
The third mountain is really key.
Yeah.
Right. In the Invitational, I was only playing 2, and I knew it was going to cost me in the top 8 because I'm boarding in so many red cards, and most of them are double red.
Yeah, we'll get back to those.
Ended up not costing me because I was pretty lucky. But
well, better lucky than good, isn't that? That's a all right. So that's about the mana dogs, and I think they're also gonna help you out with the card we'll talk about a bit later. The green sun's in it. But first you have the 4 Strangleroot Geist, which I think is pretty standard. No Viridian Emissary, for those of the guys playing that.
Emissary was a card that I wanted originally.
Yeah.
But Geists proved to be like getting a 3/2 body instead of a land proved to be actually really good. So cut all the emissaries and just went all in on Geist.
Yeah, and also you don't seem like you're ramping so much. So was it
not so much, yeah.
So was it a question of you not actually needing the land, or was it just
the Geist proved to be so much better?
Yeah.
And also against Delver, you can aggro them out with Geists. With Emissary, you can't really do that.
Yeah, of course not. And sometimes it doesn't even get a land for you. So.
No, yeah.
Okay. The next card I wanted to talk about was the 2 image, and I know this is pretty standard, but a lot of lists has been playing more clones, like 2 or 3 or 4, but this was primarily before Everson Restored. So do you think image is a key card that should be added more of? Or?
Well, 2 is kind of the perfect number, because you usually don't want to draw it.
Yeah.
Well, as with any target for pod.
Yeah.
But image can do a lot of different things, so you want to be able to have access to 2 of them.
Yeah. All right. So it's primarily for potting out then. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we got some utility cards here. We got the Borderline Ranger, which I guess is for stalling on land, or just a nice turn.
Yeah. It's just a standby birthing pod target, and you can always zenith for it if you need the land.
Yeah. And then we got the Adept, which you talked about was hard on the mana.
Yeah, if you draw it, it's really, really bad. If you birthing pod, like if it's in your library, it's actually pretty good. But when you draw it, it's just horrible.
Sure.
And that's a card that's on the list to be cut.
Okay, I was wondering if this is an aggressive inclusion or something you play to stall the board, or.
Well, generally when you do get it, it's you have a Geist in play, and then you have just played Birthing Pod, sack the Geist to get Adept, and then so you're bouncing. You could be a Flip Delver or just a mana guy, but either way, you're gaining a huge tempo advantage and putting pressure on the board.
Okay, sure.
And that's the best case scenario for that card.
Yeah. How often does it target your own stuff? Like you have a lot of.
I might have done that one time ever, I think.
Okay, fair enough. So that's not the goal.
Yeah, not really.
Okay,
you can usually clone your guys if you want to bounce them.
Yeah. And a card we've seen a lot of in sideboards is Daybreak Ranger. How good has this guy been for you?
It's been pretty good against Delver. I normally thought it was pretty bad because it's so slow and it takes so long to get active. Yeah. But that matchup is actually not that fast unless they have the double Delver draw or something like that.
Yeah.
So normally it's actually pretty good against them.
Yeah. And it can also fight the Angel, but it's at the same time it's pretty bad against the Angel because of you having to say go and then they play something at instant speed. So. It's
pretty iffy, but it's been good. Mostly it's been good when I draw it.
Yeah.
But it still makes a reasonable target.
Alright. So, and finally we have the Deceiver Exarch, which I wanted to ask you, is this a value card or is it a card that you
It's basically the key to the deck's explosiveness.
Yeah. So going from 2
it lets you go from
2 to 4. Well,
let's say you go turn 2 pod, and then followed up with a Geist. You can then go get a Huntmaster because of the Exarch.
Yeah.
Then the turn after that, you can get Inferno Titan because of Conscripts.
Yeah.
So it just gives you an extra amount of explosiveness to go from 2 to 4 in one turn.
All right. So, and I've seen you play it for value as well. So, I guess it.
Well, when you draw it, you have to come up with some way to use it.
Yeah. I guess it interacts well with the Huntmaster because you can play it on that turn and flip.
Actually, I had somebody against me. Somebody had Daybreak in play.
Yeah.
I had a Huntmaster.
Yeah.
And he passed to flip his Daybreak.
Yeah.
Or no, first he killed my bird. Then he passed to flip his Daybreak, played Exarch to untap it, and then used it to kill my Huntmaster before it flipped.
Oh.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah. Fair enough. Huntmaster of the Fells. You have 4 of these, compared to 2 or 3 in many lists. I'm guessing this is because it was a red-green deck originally, or
Not exactly. I think it's just one of the best cards you can play right now,
Yeah.
and I would never be caught playing less than 4 in a deck that can play 4.
All right. So I agree with you in this because it it really gives you a lot of time and can just take over the board.
Yep. It can just take over games
Yeah.
by flipping, or by not even flipping. It's just
Yeah.
it does so much stuff.
So are you looking to actively sacrifice this to get your bigger guys, or do you want to keep it around as long as possible?
It just depends on the matchup and the situation.
Yeah.
You can you can sack it to go get Inferno Titan, so usually that's going to be
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it flips before you want it to, then you can't get a 5-drop at all because it becomes a 0-drop.
Yeah.
But usually that's fine.
All right.
Usually you can make do.
How good are you at flipping it back if it's like that?
If you are in a situation where you can afford to flip it into Ravager,
Yeah.
then usually you can also flip it back over.
Okay. Fair enough. And we got the one Metamorph just to add up on the
Just
clones. Yeah.
another pod target, a clone at the 4-drop.
Okay. And yeah, I'm gonna save this card a bit, but of course it's the key card.
Yep.
I do have some questions for it though, and we'll talk about the 5-drops. Now we got 3 bullets here, where this we talked about was for Birthing Pod going from 4 to 6.
It does that, and it does plenty of other stuff too.
Yeah.
That is just an amazing card.
Yeah. So this is one of your MVPs.
Yep, for sure.
Do you consider putting 2 in the main deck or?
Well, the only reason to put 2 in would be if you actually wanted to draw the card,
Yeah.
and it's still not exactly a card you want to draw.
Oh. But I've been playing Kipler's Naya list that
Mhm.
has 2 pots in it, and I found it pretty underwhelming if you draw it. But I can see it doing a lot of stuff here. Like it's not gonna steal anything against Delver, for instance. But
Yeah, it's not good in every matchup, and yeah, playing
So-
2.
what's your biggest blowout with this card? If you can remember any cool stories.
Well, there's actually tons of things you can do with it.
Yeah.
I don't remember any specific ones off the top of my head.
So no stealing Planeswalkers. That's about to.
Stealing Planeswalkers is a good blowout. Actually, at the Invitational, there was a game where I think I sacked something to get conscripts. I
Yeah.
took a Sun Titan, attack with both, get back Aether Adept, or it might have been an Exarch, and then tap a Image Sun Titan
Yeah.
for the win.
That seems pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, I think that was the top 8 match actually. I think I saw that. So.
No, I don't think it was in top 8. There was no.
Yeah, I saw
Sun
something.
Titan.
Saw something comparable to that then, where
It-
you stole
yeah.
the land and then
That's happened a lot.
you.
You take a land, get it from Titan.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So and we got the Silverheart, which I guess is your go-to big guy.
The Silverheart is actually not that good in this deck.
Okay.
You almost never pod for it because when you can get that, you could also just get Inferno Titan.
Yeah. Which
Or
is
you could
bigger.
maybe just win the game with Conscript stealing something.
Yeah.
But it is in there mostly for Zenithing for in 2 specific matchups, and that would be Red Green and Wolf Run Ramp.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, where it beats the Titans and
Yeah.
just stalls the board against burn-based aggro decks. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. And finally, we have Acidic Slime, which is a pretty common utility card. For
Yep,
I
it's
guess
just-
this is hitting swords most of the time, or
It's just a answer to a ton of different stuff.
yeah.
Swords, O-Ring, some lands.
Yeah. Fair enough. So, like, if they have a Wolf Run or a Inkmoth Nexus or
Mhm.
something like that. Okay, and finally, Infernal Titan making a comeback in your deck. He was kind of on the sidelines for a long time, with him not really hitting Geist of St. Traft and stuff like that. How good has he been for you?
Well, the card is really good in this deck, and because you can get out so fast. But the truth is, it's also a little risky because in some matchups you can get conscripted or cloned,
Yeah.
but it's still the best thing you can be doing
Yeah. So
with this deck.
Frost Titan or Consecrated things are the obvious other choices. Have you tried
Uh,
these out?
Frost Titan, his ability kind of is just random in this deck. It doesn't
Yeah.
fit with anything.
No.
It's not as impactful as Inferno Titans is.
No.
Consecrated Sphinx I was boarding for a little while, and I thought that was an okay target, but I figured, I don't know, it's not boarded often enough to actually warrant being in the deck.
Okay, fair enough.
So Inferno Titan is just the go-to guy there.
Yeah, so you only have 3 5s, so that's why you only have 1 6, I guess.
Well, 3 is plenty
Well,
for the purposes of getting a 6-drop.
many pot lists are playing 3 6-drops and even a 7-drop, but you're opting out of this plan.
You don't need to have like a bunch of different 6-drops. You just want the one, so that you can. It's there if you need it, but usually, or a lot of the time, you just don't want to waste your time getting up to 6. You just want to make do with the 1s through 5s.
Yeah. All right. So, finally, Green Sun Zenith is a card that has been seeing some play in Birthing Pod, but often been cut as well. So, how is this in your deck?
In this deck, it has a lot of different options, and that's the main reason why I play it in this. You have the 2 4-ofs and the Geist and the Huntmaster, and those are the typical targets.
Yeah.
And then from there, you have just a ton of different options to get Silverheart, Slime, Daybreak, Borderland, and getting a 1-drop is actually pretty common on turn 2 if you didn't have one on turn 1.
All right.
So it just gives you so many options, just like Birthing Pod does. It gives you a ton of options.
Is it a good replacement for a Birthing Pod if you have mana-hungry hands, or
if you don't draw a pod, it'll help you a little bit, but it's nowhere near the same thing.
No, of course not. Okay. So the last card I wanted to talk about is Birthing Pod, because it really seems like this deck could work without it, like the red-green and red-green-white decks we're seeing, Naya decks. So how key is this card? Is it just your deck becomes that much better, or is it...
Well, the Naya deck can work without it or it can only play 2 copies or something like that, because it's just a mid-range deck of sorts, and it just uses pod for value. But this deck is a little different. The entire goal the entire purpose is to go from 2 to 4, and then go from 4 to 6, if that's the best thing you can do in that situation. But it's just the entire deck is Birthing Pod.
Okay, so are you mulliganing very aggressive for this? Going to 6 a lot?
I don't mulligan too aggressively to get pod. It's usually if I just have a playable hand, I keep it. But you can actually mulligan to 4 or 5 and still win if you drew a Birthing Pod.
Okay, so it's that good in this deck then.
Yeah.
Alright, so that does it for the main deck. Any comments you want to add on the... I think we covered it, but...
Covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, I guess we did.
But if there were... The 2 cards that I'm thinking about cutting right now are Aether Adept and Wolfir Silverheart.
Yeah.
And when M13 comes out, the Silverheart is easily getting replaced by Thragtusk.
Yeah. The big guy, 3/3, gives 5.
Yeah, the 5/3 gain 5, and then would at least play 3/3.
Yeah.
That card is... Unlike Silverheart, which is bad against Vapor Snag, this card is amazing against Vapor Snag.
Yeah, of course.
And it's also just a really good card. This deck pays a lot of life sometimes, so being able to gain 5 in one motion is pretty useful.
Yeah. How often do you go really low to the pod? Can you... the draw you talked about with turn 2 pod, Geist is like...
If you're going turn 2 pod and then Geist getting a Huntmaster, you're going to end up on 16 just from that.
Yeah.
Usually, if you have the nut draw like that, it doesn't matter. But just having the option to gain 5 life is a good thing.
Yeah. Do you have any candidates for the 3-drop slot, or would you just add another 4?
Actually, yes. Right now, I'm considering Blister Stick Shaman.
Okay. Just for pinging Delvers, or...?
It does some stuff that Aether Adept does. Like if you're bouncing at birds, you would rather just Blister Stick Shaman it.
Yeah.
You can kill an unflipped Delver, which is not as good. But the fact that you can actually cast Blister Stick a lot easier is the main purpose behind it.
And for the viewers, Blister Stick Shaman is a 2/1 that deals 1 damage to a creature or a player, if I recall correctly.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a Goblin Shaman.
If only Fire Imp was around.
Oh, yeah, that's
be
before my
better.
time, I think.
Yeah.
Alright, so... But Blister Stick Shaman is a potential candidate. Alright.
Hmm.
For you at home trying to play a PTQ. Also, we're gonna talk about the sideboard, and you have some options, and I'm just gonna go through them and talk about what cards you're trying to counter or decks you're trying to counter with the specific cards. So, Arctrail, who are you bringing this in against?
The main purpose of that is to deal with one drops against other green decks, so you can slow them down and then enact your own game plan before they can do anything.
Yeah.
But it still kills, in those matchups, it still kills Huntmaster. And then I've also found myself bringing it in against Delver.
Yeah.
When I wasn't normally doing that.
Okay, I was about to ask you if this was horrible against Delver.
It's actually pretty good. They're usually bringing in Phantasmal images.
Yeah.
And that's just an added bonus because most of the games you lose, it's because they have early Delver or multiple Delvers. Okay. So Arctrail helps you beat those draws from them.
So do you board it in against the Geist of Saint Traft versions or only the Blaze Splicer versions?
Geist Saint Traft versions too.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, it gives some value, but it used to be better against them, I guess. Before, when you were playing Illusions, I've lost to this. Playing Illusions.
Yeah, that was a huge blowout.
Yeah,
I remember that.
a few times. Okay, and Crushing Vines, is this a Delver card again, or?
It's primarily for Delver. It just gives you another answer for Restoration Angel, Delver, and then Sword.
Yeah.
But I've actually ended up cutting the vines for Combust.
Yeah.
Because the swords really aren't as big of a deal as being able to deal with Delver and Angel for less mana, uncounterable. Yeah, and you can also deal with Hero with Combust,
so
which is another thing.
I was considering you have when this card started going big on the scene, it was against the Consecrated Sphinx that they were bringing in as well. So
yeah, that's another card.
Yeah.
Combust doesn't deal with Sphinx, but it's just not as big of an issue as like Combust being better against Delver and Restoration Angel.
And also, most of the decks have been moving towards playing Hero of Bladehold instead of Consecrated Sphinx because of this card. So Combust gives some good value there, I guess.
Or Sun Titan. Sometimes they play Sun Titan instead of Sphinx.
Which you're just don't have a lot of options against, I guess. But
yeah.
You can steal it. But, yeah.
Cloning Titan can be pretty fun.
Yeah. Get a good clone war there. Alright, so we have the Wolf Run. Is this for the Wolf Run decks or just value?
It gives you a 25th mana source, which I think is something that a lot of decks should be doing, just boarding in another land. And it also gives you a way to kill images.
Yeah.
But that's not really the main purpose. It's just the 25th land that also adds a great amount of utility to your deck.
Okay. Do you actively try to board it in against the Wolf Run ramp deck so you can image their Titan, or do you just they don't draw a Titan?
Actually, I boarded in almost every round or every match actually.
Is it because of?
But against Wolf Run ramp, it does have a specific purpose of when you conscripts their Titan, you can go get Wolf Run.
Yeah.
And then, or you can clone their Titan too. Yeah. So that is an added bonus for that card.
All right. So you board into 25 lanes. Is this correct?
And that's also because in a lot of matchups you expect your 1-drops to die.
Yeah.
So having another land is better for those matchups too.
All right. So do you consider playing one of these main deck just as a mana sink, or is it too?
I don't feel like the mana is good enough for the Wolf Run main deck. Yeah, I just think as a 25th land it works. In the main deck, though, I don't think it would work as well.
Okay, fair enough. And we got this Stingerfling Spider, which I guess is a pot target against Delver.
Yep. Just another answer for those pesky flying creatures.
Yeah. So, I think the biggest part of this card is that it blocks afterwards, so you can kill Delver and storm.
Yeah, after you kill a flyer with it, it still blocks at anything they could do, unless they have a sword.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it really good.
So is sword a big problem for this deck?
It's a small problem.
Yeah. You have slime.
To be honest, you have slime, but I actually usually board slime out.
Okay.
So in those matchups, so once you have no answers to it, it can be a problem.
Yeah.
But I've actually not played against Delver, and it actually has been a problem. So
Okay. Fair enough. Well, most decks are moving towards One Piece right now, anyway. So.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But I think that's a card that could be problematic, but not that bad.
I think Feast and Famine is the correct choice currently for Delver.
Okay.
That's bad for us though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's why it's the correct choice.
Yeah.
So we have 2 conscripts. What do you put these in again? Besides, is it just Wolf Run Ramp or?
It's not just Wolf Run. Any deck with a good amount of Planeswalkers it comes in against. Against Sun Titan it comes in.
Yeah. How about the Delverless Delver decks with Tamiyo and?
Yeah, it comes in against those.
Okay. So I've tried playing this for value, I guess, is the best way to say it. So
yeah.
The deal is you steal one of their guys and you hope to kill them, or is it just use your Sun Titan, use your Planeswalker?
Usually if you're taking Sun Titan, you're hoping to end the game that turn.
Yeah.
But it's possible you're just setting up for a future win. Against Tamiyo, you're just getting value.
Yeah.
You're just drawing some cards. And then against Gideon, you're hoping to kill them, because if they get to untap with Gideon again, then what you just accomplished didn't really mean much.
No. Okay, so we got the Pillar of Flame, which replaces the 3rd Arc Trail.
It replaced the 3rd Arc Trail because I was only boarding 2 Arc Trails in against Delver in the first place, and I wanted a card that was specifically good against zombies.
Okay. So zombies, if people didn't know, has been winning quite a lot, winning the recent Star City Games event and the recent Moto PTQ. So is this why you wanted to have some more game against them, or?
I just felt like the matchup wasn't as good as I'd like it to be, and it's starting to see a bit of play.
Yeah.
So I wanted one. And actually, I played against zombies in the MOCS, and a turn I cast Pillar of Flame, it would have been better as an Arc Trail.
Yeah.
So maybe Arc Trail is just better.
Yeah, I think maybe the debate is whether Blood Artist is the biggest problem, or you're really losing to Gravecrawler and
you want to hit Messenger with that. That's the big card. But Blood Artist is actually a pretty big problem. So Arc Trail might just be better.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so we got another fun one, Hound of Griselbrand.
Mm-hmm.
A really strong card, in my opinion. But
it's a reasonable card.
Yeah. How has this been for you, and what do you bring it in?
The main purpose of that card is just to get around Day of Judgment.
Yeah.
It's a good value card, but it's like you have to actually draw the card to be able to want to do that. Because if you could tutor for it, you could just get a Hunt Master, and that's always good value.
Yeah.
But against Day of Judgment specifically, this card is better.
Alright. Fair enough. And Hero of Oxford Ridge is another new addition.
It could just be a 4th Hellrider, and that might be better.
Yeah.
But I wanted something I could tutor for that just gets past Lingering Souls and Timely Reinforcement tokens.
Yeah. So
but the 2 toughness is a pretty big hindrance for this card, because part of why Hellrider is good is because it survives Whip Flare. What else? There's any 2-power creature, which
Geist is,
Geist survives blocks from that.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I don't know if you put it in against Strength.
Well, in the match where they do bring it in, they usually have Phantasmal Image, and they copy Geist, so it is relevant in that situation.
Yeah, alright. And then we got the 3 Hellriders for going aggro, I guess, or how much do you bought this in?
It's actually a really, really good part of this deck, is the Hellrider board plan.
Okay. So you go into a more aggressive deck post-board?
Mm-hmm. Usually they're not, well, by now people might know about it, but if they're not prepared for it, then it can overrun them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And being able to clone it is also pretty big.
Okay, so it's like boarding in Hero of Oxidridge in the old rock deck lists, piloted by Patrick Chapin and stuff like that, people like that. I don't know if you played the deck back then.
I don't remember that.
Okay, but they had a pretty solid plan of Hero of Oxidridge and Orobrask and stuff like that. Where you just aggro them.
Similar.
Yeah.
Similar game plan.
Yeah. Alright, so, and multiple Hill Riders is of course just gonna win every game. Yeah. Okay, this brings up another point. How much are you the control deck, and how much are you the aggro deck?
It's really just dependent on the matchup.
Yeah.
Against Delver, it's also very draw dependent. Against Delver, if they don't have a Delver, and you do have a Geist, then you're very easily the aggressive deck. If they do have a Delver and they flip it, then you're the control deck, and you have to try and, or you could always raise, but usually they're going to win the race, and you want to answer their Delvers as fast as you can.
All right, so Delver of Secrets is really the key card for them.
In that matchup, it's pretty much based on if they have a Delver or not.
Okay. So do you think the matchup is solid if they don't, or overall?
If they don't have a Delver, I'm pretty confident in that matchup.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. We'll talk more about matchups, but finally we have Ancient Grudge, which is a card I really like at the moment. Do you bring it in against Delver?
I haven't been bringing it in against Delver, just because it's too narrow, and like one copy is okay, but the fact that it's just so narrow, and they usually won't beat you with equipment anyway.
No.
I don't think it's worth having.
Okay, but how are you boarding it in against Blade Splicer decks, or?
I'm usually bringing it in against Blade Splicer. Against Nyapod, of course, I'm bringing it in.
Yeah.
But against the Delverless deck, I'm kind of torn on bringing it in.
Okay.
Like they do have, because they have Restoration Angel, it is actually pretty good because you can kill 2 golem tokens.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is not a bad card to bring in that matchup.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've been playing it like that in the Naya deck as well, just to potentially stop a sword and maybe kill the Blade Splicer token. So I think this is a decent card at the moment. Did you put it in the sideboard with a specific card in mind?
No, I just felt like I wanted to have some artifact removal in this format. You can't really go wrong with some artifact removal.
No.
And since now the vines have become combusts, it's also better to have 1 grudge.
Did you go up to 2 grudges, or?
No, it's just not that important right now. If the format was different, like you saw more Tempered Steel, or I don't know what else. Like Pod has started to become pretty big, so maybe. Well, if Pod is becoming big, you'd rather just have a Corruptor.
Yeah.
So.
Viridian Corruptor.
Yeah, Viridian Corruptor.
Which is the 2/2 that destroys an artifact when it comes into.
Yeah. It's just you can actually Zenith for it fast enough that it matters, unlike Acidic Slime.
Have you gone so far as considering it main deck if pods become?
I have not considered that. Pod is about 20, maybe 20% of the field now.
Yeah.
If you account all pod decks.
Yeah.
And that's pretty big. So it just depends on how much you really expect. My number that I just said was based off of just one daily event that I tracked.
Okay. So yeah, I guess we'll need some more data to see if this deck and other birthing pod decks catches on.
Oh well, most of the birthing pod decks are actually Naya.
Okay, yeah, the Kibler version with 2 pods or bigger decks. Okay. All right, so that does it for the card by card choice talk. We talked about the main deck switches up in the future. Is there anything in the sideboard you're either very happy with and wanted more of, or the opposite?
All the numbers are pretty good. Well, except for that one pillar, probably should just be an Arc Trail.
Yeah.
And the one hero could also just be a Hell Rider.
Yeah.
Everything else is pretty good, I think.
Okay, so that's based on your local meta and what you're expecting, I guess, if you want the Hell Rider or the Arc
Well,
stuff like
the hero might just be superfluous, and the Hell Rider is just always better.
Yeah.
even against the only reason Hellrider would be worse is against timely reinforcements.
Yeah.
But that's pretty narrow in comparison to how much Hellrider is better.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to talk with you before we move to the next subject is when you bought in all of these 4-drops, do you seek to cut 4-drops actively, or?
Yeah, usually in the matchups that Hellrider is good, the Huntmaster is not very good.
Okay, so that's
so I usually cut 3 Huntmasters, and I'll even just 1 for potting or zenithing for.
Yeah, bring in these guys. Alright, so you're looking to go aggressive against control decks and stuff like that, or is it just a good overall plan, you think?
Yes, because you can't really out-control them.
Yeah.
And with Birthing Pod, if you get Birthing Pod online, then you can just get multiple Hellriders, and they can't do much about that.
Alright. So, and I guess sideboarding with this deck is really on the fly what you need in the specific matchup.
You're usually boarding out different tutor targets that just become bad in each matchup.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm usually boarding out Zeniths.
Okay, so the non-high impact cards, I guess. Right.
Like Aether Adept.
Yeah, do you board out the Metamorph at all? Or is it
No,
just
I never board out the Metamorph. It's just always a good target to have.
Yeah.
The images, though, I think I board those out occasionally when my opponents don't have any creatures in their deck.
Yeah. Okay, so they're not as much for cloning your own guys as in other decks, maybe.
That's generally, you don't just want to draw them and clone your own guy.
No.
You can tutor for them and clone your own guy, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if your opponent doesn't have anything for you to target, then you can trim those.
Yeah.
Sometimes I leave in 1 image, and sometimes I cut both.
Yeah. Alright. Yeah, so that does it for the card-by-card talk. How do you think, what metagame do you want to play? What metagame is this deck good in? And
as far as matchups go, I think Delver is reasonable of a matchup, and then to be honest, I don't know. The only bad matchup I feel like I have is against a deck like Frights.
Yeah.
But that deck is not on the radar right now.
No, like Brad Nielsen has been talking about it, but
yeah, it's it top 8'd the Invitational.
Yeah.
And it's getting a little bit of hype from a few people, but I don't think the deck is very good.
No.
And I think if people were to play it in big numbers, it's going to get hated out.
Yeah.
So that makes it a bad choice generally.
Yeah. So the Naya decks, how do you fare against those?
I haven't played against a lot of Nyapod actually, so that's a tough one to say. It might be in their favor.
Like for instance, how bad is a turn to Thalia or for your plan?
Well, we have just 8
so that's not
cards that targets.
Big problem. So to me, it seems like you can just go bigger than them. But
it's kind of a weird matchup. We have a bigger endgame, but they have a better Huntmasters because they have Restoration Angel.
Yeah.
So they could just pass with Huntmaster, kill our bird or something, play Restoration Angel, and then that gives them a pretty big board advantage.
Okay. How do you feel about those two? Well, Restoration Angel and Blade Splicer are 2 really big cards right now. How does this fare against those cards?
Blade Splicer pretty much shuts us down from attacking.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of ways to get past that very quickly, at least. Okay. If you can get Inferno Titan out fast enough in that matchup, then they don't have much hope of winning. Okay. Because once you untap, you can start cloning it.
Yeah.
And their team won't really stand a chance.
Fair enough. And Restoration Angel is something we can't really block, but is it a big problem?
Yeah, that's generally how they will beat you, is with they'll just stall the ground out and then they'll attack with the Restoration Angels. Yeah. So the only real ways to stop that would be a quick Daybreak and Inferno Titan as fast as you can. So that is a small problem for that matchup.
Okay. Do you think the explosiveness of the deck outweighs the bad cards for this deck, or is there any other reason why we should be playing this deck, in your opinion?
Well, to be honest, I haven't played with Nyapod myself, so it's hard to say if this is actually better than that one.
Yeah.
But it's fared me pretty well so far.
Okay.
But now with Niapod being much more popular, who knows?
Yeah. All right. Finally, I wanted to talk about Bonfire of the Damned, both in this deck and against this deck. Is it a big problem if you get bonfired?
The only deck that I think should be playing Bonfire is Red-Green Aggro.
Yeah.
And in that matchup, it is a problem.
Okay.
Because they can play like a bird and then a threat, and then if they Bonfire you,
Yeah.
you're pretty far behind.
Okay. Yeah, that
Uh,
makes sense. How about playing
in this
it in this deck? Do you prefer
in this
the Ice
deck,
Rails or?
in this deck, in the main deck, you don't really want to be killing creatures very much. That's not the plan.
Oh.
If you are doing that, it's you want to do it with Infernal Titan.
Okay.
But just having stray bonfires in your deck is not what you want. And in the sideboard, I think Arc Trail is just better because it's faster.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and more specialized, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and the damage to the face isn't that relevant, or well, I guess it is.
Not really. It's just the fact that they can wipe your board and then they can stall a board and then wipe your board.
Yeah.
It's gonna be game ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't feel like Bonfire's good in the pod decks.
No. Well, it can be okay in my opinion in the Naya decks that are looking to be aggressive with 2 birthing pods only and stuff. But yeah.
Well, it's not gonna be bad every time, but I feel like it's just a card that you don't really want to draw very often with this deck, except for in very specific situations and matchups.
Alright, so that does it for what I wrote down that I wanted to talk about. Do you have any final thoughts on the deck or the...
I think I covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, it was pretty thorough.
Yeah.
Alright, so any final shoutouts? I know you have a stream and a Twitter account. So
yeah, if you like to check out my stream, it's twitch.tv/theshipitholla.
yeah,
And the same thing for Twitter.
yeah, and I'll put the names and links to that in the description below.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, and I want to thank you a lot for doing this. It was kind of a random Twitter request, and I'm very happy you responded to it. And
Yeah, not a problem. It was I enjoyed it.
yeah,
And I appreciate it.
So thanks a lot, and maybe see you next time.